Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So in this video, we'll try and understand the implications of GST for a person acting as an agent or an intermediary in India and providing intermediary or agency services to a person located outside India. Now, let's try to understand the current situation with the help of an example. Say there's a US vendor, of course located in US, and he wants to deliver certain goods to an Indian customer, for which he engages an agent or an intermediary who will be able to facilitate or arrange the supply of goods and reach it to this particular Indian customer. And for this particular activity, the agent or the intermediary will raise an agency or an intermediary service invoice and receive the consideration, of course, in foreign currency, in this case being dollars. Now, this particular person is termed as an intermediary providing intermediary services under GST, because he is only facilitating or arranging the supply of goods or services between two people, the original vendor and the original customer. He does not provide or supply goods services on his own account, and therefore, since he's only doing a facilitation or an arrangement, he is termed as an intermediary. Now, as far as the existing provisions for intermediary services is concerned in GST today, even though this intermediary is providing or exporting out intermediary services to this particular person located outside India and receiving his consideration in foreign currency, still it will not tantamount to an export of service. Why? Because of the criteria of place supply. Now, place supply is that criteria which tells you whether you need to charge CGST or SGST or IGST. In this particular case, for intermediary services, as per the existing provisions, the place of supply is the location of the supplier himself, and that is of the intermediary, and that is any state in India. So in this particular example, you have the location of the supplier, that is the intermediary. That's, if you look at the transaction between the intermediary and the outside vendor, in that particular transaction, intermediary's location is the location of the supplier, that's in a particular state in India, and then you have the location of the recipient, that is basically a vendor located outside India. And as far as POS or place of supply is concerned, it is also the location of the supplier that is in that particular same state where the intermediary is located. So because LOS and POS is in the same state, the intermediary will have to levy and pay, is liable to pay CGST and SGST and not IGST, because it amounts to intrastate and not interstate. Of course, he will not be able to charge GST on this export invoice because the outside person, the person in USA, will not pay their value plus GST. He will have to do a self-calculation and on top of the export value, calculate a 9% CGST and 9% SGST and pay that to the Indian government here, for which he will not get any refund. Now, because of this existing provision, there was a lot of hue and cry from a lot of intermediaries, because their services, although it is being provided to a person located outside India, for which payment is received in foreign currency, it does not tantamount to export of services, because for export of services, the place of supply should be the location outside India, that's basic location of recipient, the US vendor in this particular case. But under the existing provision, POS is equal to LOS, that's basically the location of the intermediary himself, which is in India, and therefore it does not amount to an export of service. This gave rise to huge litigation because a lot of writ petitions, a lot of cases are being filed because saying that this particular existing provision is not in favor and it is, it should be struck off and all that. Hearing all this, the GST Council decided to make a particular change, and at the 56th GST Council meeting, which was a landmark council meeting wherein GST 2.0 came into picture, at that same council meeting, they proposed an amendment. And what did they propose? They said that the existing provision where POS is equal to the location of supplier will be struck off or will be omitted or will be ignored. And for intermediary services, the place of supply will be the location of the recipient. That will be a person outside India in our particular case, which basically means that the government is trying to recognize the intermediary service being provided by the intermediary or the agent as an export of service, because now place of supply is going to be the location of recipient, that's basically the place outside India. Now this change is definitely a welcome change, because as you can see from the same particular example, The location of the recipient being USA is now going to be the place supply, and therefore the intermediary service will now tantamount to export of services, for which if they pay IGST on the export of services by the intermediary, then that IGST can be claimed as a refund, or they can go for the refund of unutilized GST which they paid on their purchases. Now, because of the POS concept, it has now become exporter services, and they can go for refund or whatever GST that they've paid upfront. This is definitely a welcome change by a lot of intermediaries and a lot of agents, because now it establishes a level playing field for all the intermediaries in the global market. When the existing provision was in place, a lot of guys in India was thinking that, okay, why don't I set up a business outside India instead of having a business in India where I have to pay GST? Let me have a branch outside India and tell my US vendor to remit my consideration to that particular branch and not bring in foreign currency in India. Now, this was of a big loss to the government, and therefore this was also one of the reasons why a change was made to amend the place supply rules. And this means that a lot of businesses will now come back to India and retain their establishments in India and continue their intermediary services. And like I said before, a lot of litigation was there prior to this particular proposed amendment, and now it is expected that all the litigation is to come down, less number of cases to be filed, less number of petitions to be filed, and all that. A confusion or a point that needs to be clarified with this particular proposed amendment is that the amendment itself is only a proposal. It has not come into the IGST Act as of now, which basically means that either it will come through budget 2026 or through an ordinance of the state or the center. So the main question is, when will the change come? Although the proposal has been made in September 2025, when will the change come? Will it be applicable from April 26 or what is something that we have to look at? And whether this change is going to be a prospective change or a retrospective change. If it's going to be a prospective change, then from the date of change, it will be termed as an export and refund can be claimed. But if it is going to be a retrospective change, then what about prior refunds? So if this change is going to be retrospective for all the older periods also, then whether intermediary service providers could claim refunds of the taxes or the CGST, SGST already paid is also a question that remains unanswered as of now. We have to sort of wait and see how the change will get implemented and what will be the added extra conditions to this particular change. But overall, like I said before, this is a very welcome change for the intermediary service sector in India. You can now find a lot of people coming back to India and starting doing the providing intermediary services, because now they will be termed under export of services and can claim a refund of whatever GST that they have paid before. Well, I hope I was able to make things clear through this particular video. If you like the video, you could show support to us by hitting the like button. If you want more videos like these on regular basis through way of notifications, you could also think of hitting on the subscribe button. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and thank you.